Released by Square in the year 2000 on the PlayStation, Final Fantasy VI director Hiroyuki Ito would return to direct a new installment, with a story written by series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi. While in development at the same time as Final Fantasy X, design emphasis was on creating a traditional medieval fantasy setting with a mix of modern and classic mechanics. As such, the mechanics of the game are most similar to Final Fantasy IV, in which each character in the cast of 8 is iconic of a traditional party role with exclusive job skills. New skills and ability are learned from equipment, along with an item crafting system, though the player can customize each character's limited loadout of skills, as only 4 characters can be fielded at a time. Again, per Ito's style, the game features a large cast with a story-shifting focus among different protagonists, though often it's told from the perspective of Zidane. The world has a heavier emphasis on exploration, between its many hidden items, optional bosses and side quests, and creative minigames. In addition, the game prominently featured the ability to switch narrative and party control with a new feature, the Active Time event, which greatly enriched character drama and added humor alongside plot development. To date, Final Fantasy IX not only holds the prestige of being the most critically acclaimed Final Fantasy installment to date by most sources, but is also the last installment to be composed exclusively by Nobuo Uematsu, as well as being the personal favorite of even the series' original creator Hironobu Sakaguchi. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. Set in the world of Gaia, we are introduced to Zidane, a roguish womanizing young man with a tail, who is a member of Tantalus, a group of traveling thieves who masquerade as a theater troupe. They've been hired to kidnap the heir to the throne of Alexandria, Princess Garnet, and will do so while performing the kingdom's most popular play, I Want to Be Your Canary. Per plan, Zidane and his friend Blank will be the kidnappers while the rest of them put on a show. As their airship, the Prima Vista, docks, the play is looking to be sold out, as it will be the showcase for the princess's 16th birthday. At this time, we see a young black mage named Vivi, who is upset to have been sold a fake ticket to the show, and soon finds himself caught up sneaking into the castle for premiere seating. Front and center to the show is Queen Brane, as well as a dismayed Princess Garnet, and the captain of the Knights, Steiner. The show is underway, and under the cover of an impressive duel, Zidane and Blank steal away, disguise themselves as guards, and initiate the kidnapping. However, to their surprise, Princess Garnet herself sneaks away on her own and flees right past them. Of course, it's not long before General Beatrix receives word, and Captain Steiner heads to search for the princess immediately, discovering her being chased by the rogues. She gives him the slip by swinging over back onto the Prima Vista, and when Zidane thinks he's cornered her, she not only confirms her identity, but also that she wants to be kidnapped by the troupe. Zidane finds himself quickly charmed by the princess, for not only her good looks, but also her skills and attitude, and finds the request easy to fulfill. However, Captain Steiner catches up to them, and despite unleashing his strongest attacks on them, is stalled when they release a swarm of critters called Loglops onto him. Their chase continues until it hits the main stage, interrupting the actual show. At the same time, guards catch Vivi trespassing within the audience and give chase, resulting in him also fleeing onto the main stage during the tragic climax of the drama. He flashes them with a little fire, but it accidentally catches the princess's cloak. She publicly unveils herself, and Tantalus decides the show is over. As Steiner and the Knights of Pluto make an effort to arrest them all, the Prima Vista attempts to lift off. However, the Queen is quick to deploy her anti-air chains, which succeed in halting the massive airship and summon a bomb to stop them all. The fiery bomb monster overwhelms even Steiner as it detonates, crippling the ship, but not enough to prevent it from drifting out of the city, prompting the Queen to send her 2 sinister jesters, Zorn and Thorn, to bring the princess back, preferably alive. Delaying the inevitable crash as long as possible, the Prima Vista wrecks inside a doomed woods called the Evil Forest, with Vivi and Garnet getting separated from Zidane and Steiner during impact. Zidane quickly finds her, though captured by a large local monster, and his surge of emotions to save her result in a powerful transformational state called trance, which impresses even Steiner. However, despite even that and Vivi's powerful magic, the monster gets away with Garnet, and Vivi and Steiner become poisoned. Zidane saves the 2 of them and defies the orders of his boss to abandon the assignment and the princess. Quitting the band of rogues, he takes Steiner with him, who convinces him to take Vivi with them. According to Steiner, black mages are fearsomely powerful and to be respected, despite Vivi's timid and childlike personality. Finding the boss plant, they defeat it together, with a little help at the last minute from Blank, though its minions give relentless pursuit. Zidane somehow senses the entire forest is after them as the evil force begins petrifying over. Blank sacrifices himself to save Zidane, throwing a map of the Mist Continent over to him, and Zidane himself just barely escapes with the others. With the route along the hazardous Mist Continent limited, they opt to escape the mist itself, which contains a strange energy and fosters strong monsters, by climbing to the peak of a nearby ice cave. However, a sudden blizzard during their trek chills them to the point of unconsciousness, though Zidane holds on just long enough to discover this is the enchantment of a menacing black mage member of a trio called the Black Waltz. He edges out a win in a one-on-one battle, though as the enchantment breaks, he chooses not to divulge this battle to his teammates. As they discover the town of Dali in the distance, Zidane suggests Garnet disguise herself under an alias, and she agrees, adopting the name Dagger after Zidane's weapon of choice. As they rest, Zidane finally asks Dagger why she wanted to escape the castle, and she reveals only that she must make it to the city of Lindblum. However, as Vivi gets snatched by the villagers, they discover this small town has a dark secret underground, creating monsters made of mist, but also smuggling them into official shipments to Alexandria Castle. More horrifying yet, they discover that actual black mages are being grown and mass-produced right here in this facility. Vivi is shocked the dolls look just like him, and Dagger is alarmed to think her mother is behind all of this. Following this mystery for now, they think to sneak onto the cargo ship. Ironically, Steiner looks to commandeer the exact ship as well, as it's going back to the castle, so he lies about the destination of the ship going back to Lindblum in order to get them all back to Alexandria. Surprisingly, another member of the Black Waltz comes in and forcibly insists on returning the princess to the castle, even attacking them all to do so. Black Waltz member number 2 is defeated though, and they board the airship despite Zidane figuring out it's really going back to the castle, and Dagger's reluctance to this. Within, the soulless Black Mage dolls operate the ship, though Zidane takes the wheel and charts a new course towards Lindblum, and all are unaware that Black Waltz number 3 is actually not far behind with a ship of his own. He's insulted to see the Black Mage dolls in his way and blasts them, and the freshly hatched ones off the ship, much to Vivi's shock and rage, powering up into a trance of his own. Number 3 escapes before he's defeated, with Thorn and Zorn looking on, and gives one last chase as the cargo ship makes a break for the south gate. Vivi holds off the Baltz's powerful magic with all of his strength, and as they clear the first checkpoint, number 3 aims to attack once more, but accidentally fries his own engines with his power, causing his ship to careen out of control and explode against the south gate as the group just squeezes by. As they enter Lindblum's gates to the city, Vivi begins seriously questioning the similarity between himself and the dolls, and Zidane is quick to change the subject, as well as think of a reason to continue the trek with Dagger. Dagger is quickly recognized and granted audience with Regent Sid of Grand Lindblum Castle, though to their combined surprise, Sid has been cursed into the form of a giant oglop, though still with his signature mustachio. They take a break, though Zidane excuses himself, as the high-class food is not for his taste. Checking out a local tavern he's familiar with instead, Zidane finds himself bumping into an old acquaintance of his, a woman of the Ratfolk race, Freya the Dragon Knight. She's actually in town for the annual Festival of the Hunt event happening soon, though she is still investigating the disappearance of her lost love. Meanwhile, Princess Garnet chats with Regent Sid over the suddenly strange and alarmingly aggressive behavior exhibited by her mother recently. It turns out, Sid was suspicious as well, and was the one who actually hired Zidane and the Tantalus troop to kidnap her in the first place, since he promised her deceased father that he would protect her. Under that cover, it would also avoid any political friction between Alexandria and Lindblum. After all, they already knew Alexandria was manufacturing an army of Black Mage golems in the village of Dali, though have a fleet of advanced airships ready to counter any potential threat. His most advanced ship, named after his wife Hilda, was actually taken by her after she found out about an affair he was having and punished him by turning him into an oglop. Meanwhile, Zidane tries to work his charm on Garnet, but she doesn't go along so easily. The next day, Vivi, Freya, and Zidane all participate in the hunting festival, but when the final results are being rewarded, a mortally wounded messenger from Bermesia limps in with the news that his country is being invaded by an army of black mages and requests reinforcements. The group decides to help, as Lindblum is strapped for resources given the recent festival. Freya wants to help her homeland, Zidane wants to help his friend Freya, Garnet wants to see if Alexandria is behind this attack, Steiner will always follow the princess, and Vivi wants to know more about these black mages. However, for her safety, they urge the princess to stay behind despite her objections. Determined to move forward regardless, Garnet slips sleeping powder into everyone's meal and decides to go to Alexandria to try and stop any potential war. When they wake up, they know they've been had, and gamble that Garnet went ahead to Bermesia. Getting there in a hurry, the Zidane crew finds a chocobo forest, wherein they tame a friendly chocobo with the handy ability to discover hidden underground treasures. Along the way, they discover a marsh that is home to a member of the long-tongued genderless Ku tribe, Quina. The voracious appetite of the Ku lends well to the blue mage Quina, as Quina can learn special attacks from monsters it eats. Quina's master implores the group to take Quina with them, as Quina has much to learn of the world, as well as master the art of eating. Finding the entrance to Bermesia littered with fallen Bermesian soldiers and black mage dolls with a kill-on-sight mission, they discover Queen Branne's jesters, Zorn and Thorn, overseeing everything. Entering the realm of Eternal Reign proper, it's still overrun by black mage dolls, and as they make their way to the palace, Freya is fearful of what they'll find, though Vivi is scared of learning why the dolls look like him and that he may not be human. Beyond, Freya's suspicions are confirmed, as Queen Branne herself, along with General Beatrix, are present to claim victory. However, a strange young man named Kuja steps forward and is thanked by the queen for his contribution to the Black Mage army. Their conversation reveals the king of Burmecia survived and has fled to the city of Illusion, Clara. Jumping in to save a reckless soldier, the group finds themselves locking blades with the legendary General Beatrix, who is completely in a league of her own as she holds back yet still beats them all to the brink of death. Kuja pauses when he sees Zidane, noting he may be a problem in the future, yet lets them all go as he flies away. Meanwhile, Garnet dons her dagger Alias as she and Steiner ignore Zidane's instructions to stay hidden and return to Alexandria to investigate the allegations against the queen themselves. However, they are ambushed by the third Black Waltz mage who survived the crash earlier, who is defeated again without revealing why it is fervently hunting the princess. They are helped by Marcus, another of the Tantalus troop, and friend of Zidane, and Garnet decides to repay the favor by helping him in his mission to cure Blank's petrification by obtaining a rare item called a super saw from a noble in the city of nobles, Trino. However, as soon as they arrive, they see it's also the home to many thieves as well. Garnet discovers her old tutor who lives in this city, Dr. Tot, not only has the super soft, but also helps them access Gargan Rue, an ancient and now unused underground tunnel route from Trino to Alexandria. Arriving secretly in Alexandria, they fall into Zorn and Thorn's trap, who were ordered to capture, not merely retrieve, the lost princess. Confused at the subtlety, they are arrested. Back with Zidane and crew, they opt to follow Queen Brane and Kuja to the desert town of Clara, where the king and Burmecian survivors fled. Arriving, they find a lapse in the wind barrier surrounding Clara and move in, finding it to be a colossal tree in the middle of the desert. Scaling its sandy, windswept trunk, they arrive at Clara's settlement, though Vivi faces some hostility from the refugees. Freya helps the settlement in a ritual to strengthen the wind barrier, protecting the town. However, something goes wrong with the crystal empowering the sandstorm, and it breaks, resulting in the barrier dissipating instead. Meanwhile, Steiner and Marcus are in prison and Garnet is under arrest, when the queen summons her and Garnet chooses now to confront her mother on the allegations that she started the invasion on Burmecia. However, the queen states there's been a misunderstanding, as Burmecia was plotting an attack and she was forced to strike preemptively. Garnet doesn't easily believe that, and Kuja steps in and puts her under a magical sleep. Immediately, the queen's facade changes as she now orders the eidolons from Garnet's body to be extracted, and the two jesters begin the ritual, first calling forth the legendary warrior Odin. Back with Zidane, Freya wonders why the sandstorm that has stood for over 1,000 years suddenly failed, and they decide to investigate. Quickly, they find Alexandrian soldiers in the trunk under the command of General Beatrix, but there are way too few for a real attack and too quick to run away. Realizing they've taken the bait for a distraction, they hurry back to find more Black Mage dolls infiltrating the settlement and slaughtering the refugees. During the rescue operation, Zidane even encounters a remarkably strong and mysterious Burmecian, who turns out to be the missing Sir Fratley that Freya was in love with and has been searching for all these years. Unfortunately, he has lost all his memories somewhere during his journey, and despite his instinct to help Clara, does not love Freya anymore. Freya has little time to swallow this bitter shock, as General Beatrix appears in the room, swipes the magical jewel that was protecting the town, and swiftly retreats. They catch up to her but once again suffer a humiliating defeat by her hands. She leaves them alive and jumps through a portal to escape, and they follow behind as well, though Quinna decides not to follow this time. It turns out Queen Brane is not far away, as she decides to test the new Odin Eidolon she's obtained, delightfully surprised to see Odin annihilating the entire settlement in a single attack. As they eavesdrop on Beatrix, they find she too is dissatisfied with the usage of black mages and eidolons, with her pride as a knight being compromised to a very selfish queen. She is further shocked that the queen now wants to execute Garnet for her actions as she searches for one last crystal. Zidane and the others hear this as well and hurry to Alexandria where Garnet is detained, using the same magic transport to leave. Meanwhile, Steiner and Marcus decide to break out of their cell, with Marcus leaving to go rescue Blank, and Steiner firm on rescuing the princess. Coincidentally, the same room he passes by is where the group teleports to. They unite in their mission to rescue Garnet before the queen arrives and interrupt Zorn and Thorn's ritual. They do their best to rescue her, but find they cannot break her magic sleep. Zidane is struck with remorse now as Beatrix now arrives on the scene, once again delivering a crushing defeat to the group. However, when she learns the princess really was put under a spell in preparation to be executed, she ceases her attack and uses her strongest spells to reverse it, while also asking Steiner to realize the true face of their queen. On cue, Queen Brane steps in, confirming her intent to kill them all. Beatrix stands against the queen and helps them all escape, with even Marcus and a restored Blank coming in to save them. They get split up, with Zidane, Garnet, and Vivi hitting a high-speed escape through Gargan Rue as they blow past Trino to a new area, Pinnacle Rocks. Meanwhile, Queen Brane dismisses Thorn and Zorn and brings in a pair of famous bounty hunters, Lonnie and Salamander, to retrieve Garnet's jewel pendant and kill Vivi specifically, with Zidane as a bounty as well. Back with the group, Pinnacle Rocks happens to be near Lindblum as they are met by an old man named Ramu. Garnet recalls him from her studies about summoning, and she is now determined to stop her mother who stole her Eidolons and is using them to cause so much destruction. Approving of this resolution, Ramu tests Garnet, and upon passing agrees to serve under Garnet, who vows to use her summons to protect. Meanwhile, Alexandria begins attacking Lindblum, using the Black Mage army to devastating effect, and summoning the Void Eidolon Atmos to deliver the final blow as Lindblum surrenders. Hurrying to assess the damage, they find the city in ruins, but Regent Stid still lives. He reveals a man named Kuja is an arms dealer, and the Black Mage dolls are just among the weapons he's sold to Alexandria. As he is also the sole arms support for Queen Brane, stopping him may end Alexandria's war machine, and so they make him their next target. They want to chase Kuja to the outer continent, but their options to get there are limited, as it's across the ocean and there is no mist there, so normal airships cannot travel there. In addition, Sid informs them part of the surrender meant handing over the new airship that could fly without being powered by mist and their Falcon Claw relic. He does have a lead on a route near a nearby swamp and urges them to investigate as he prepares his own covert counterattack. Making their way to the nearby swamp, they are glad to find Quina safe and alive after the destruction of Clara, whose keen senses accidentally helped them find the hidden entrance to the outer continent. In the deep roads of Fossil Rue, the group is immediately chased down by an ancient monster, and after escaping that are ambushed by the bounty hunter Lonnie sent by Queen Brane. Defeating her, they hitch a ride on another Guardian and travel onward to a new mist-free continent. Finding a ruined temple called Condi Petty, inhabited by a clan of dwarves, they are surprised to learn there's actually a whole village of black mages nearby. With a new lead on Vivi's origins as well as a possible link to Kuja's army, they decide to head there next. Unraveling the riddle of the village, which was hidden behind an illusory veil, they are surprised to see there really is a village of sentient black mages like Vivi, though they seem scared of any human contact. As they open up through Vivi, they reveal their shared trait of one day simply waking up with awareness, each under different circumstances, though they then privately reveal something very distressing to Vivi. To himself, Zidane reflects how he is also still searching for his own unknown origins and birthplace, and can relate to Vivi wanting to find a place to call home. In truth, Vivi learns the startling revelation that all black mages are manufactured weapons for war and are created to only last roughly a year, assuming they aren't killed through battle, by which they simply stop and cease functioning forever. A fellow black mage imparts to him the wisdom that such a precious short lifespan really makes him appreciate the time he does have to live, and they encourage him to live happy with his friends and see the world while he can. The next morning, Garnet learns Kuja was sighted in a restricted area called Sanctuary up north past Condi Petty, and the group gathers up again, with Vivi choosing not to stay behind with his fellow black mages, though he keeps secret the fact of the countdown clock on his very short life. As they return to the dwarf village, they learn that per tradition, the only people allowed to pass through to the sanctuary are newlyweds on their honeymoon. Surprisingly, Garnet agrees to marry Zidane so they may progress on, though she is strict on the matter that they're only married while in this village. As they press on, they catch a glimpse of a little girl in a Moogle stealing food and running away into the sanctuary, and soon after they find her stuck on a limb and help her down. The little girl with a horn introduces herself as Eiko, and as they escort her safely home, they discover Eiko is also capable of summoning Eidolons like Garnet. Eiko lives in the village of lost summoners Madain Seri, though it seems to be just her alongside a host of Moogles. Resting in the village, everyone stops to reflect, as Garnet feels this village is very familiar, Vivi contemplates what it means to die, and Eiko has a crush on Zidane. As Eiko prepares a dinner meant to impress Zidane, she reveals she's actually the last survivor of the Summoner tribe. When they hear a forbidden Eidolon sealed within the sacred Ifa tree, they ask Eiko to help them investigate. As they arrive, they find the tree is likely the source of the world's mist, and Eiko's link to the Eidolons via her horn is the only thing that can lift the seal around it. They find the tree's roots go down impossibly deep, yet there is no sign of Kuja or his minions here. However, they are discovered by a massive creature that seems to verify Zidane is not Kuja, and explains that mist is a byproduct of the refinement process by this tree, discharged through the roots, hence why it appears on other continents and not really this one. In fact, the discharge is deliberate, as the mist stimulates aggression in creatures, resulting in mass war and strife. Furthermore, Kuja was the one who thought to weaponize this waste product in the form of black mages. The 1,000-year-old creature claims to be the source of the mist, and defeating it stops the mist, and after killing it, it seems to have been true. Immediately, mist clears up everywhere around the tree, and likely beyond as well, though now they ponder if they attracted the attention of Kuja. Suddenly, Mog comes in to inform Eiko that their village has been robbed of the village's precious stone, and as they arrive, Eiko gets snatched by the hounding Lonnie the bounty hunter. She makes her demand of the pendant with Eiko as a hostage, but suddenly her partner Amarant interferes, disgusted with Lonnie using treachery to win. He ends the contractual partnership with Lonnie, but still intends to defeat Zidane in a fair one-on-one duel. He loses the duel and honorably hands over the stolen jewel and asks for a quick death. However, Zidane has no wish to kill him and lets him go on good faith. Garnet then has a flashback of memories, in which she recalls an entire city on fire with a giant eye in the sky while she watched from a storm-tossed boat. She actually remembers that she is from this village of summoners originally, and somehow when she was 6, ended up adopted in Alexandria Castle after a devastating storm cast her adrift and killed her mother. There are still unanswered questions like why she doesn't have a summoner's horn and thinks Dr. Tot knows more. Eiko decides after this to follow the group and is especially pleased to hear she's not the last summoner in the world anymore. Surprisingly, Amarant catches them leaving the village and expresses his confusion on why Zidane would not grant him a warrior's death. Zidane then offers for him to join them and find out, and Amarant accepts, curious about the source of Zidane's strength. Back on track, they return to the Ifa tree, where Kuja is also waiting, and as they confront him, he not only admits all of their charges, but also reveals that Mist is actually composed of the dregs of souls. He also insists that while it's true he made the Black Mage army and supplied it to Queen Brane, he offers to expose the true face of the Queen. On cue, the Queen is actually nearby with an entire armada here to destroy Kuja as a loose end towards world domination. However, he is unfazed by the predictable betrayal, and humors the Queen by flying directly out into the open. Garnet still wants to save the Queen despite Zidane's objections, and has Eiko reveal the Eidolon sealed here in the tree. Garnet moves to free the Eidolon, but sees it's the mighty Leviathan, a summon meant for mass destruction and not so much protection. As the Queen summons the King of Dragons to destroy Kuja, the mighty Bahamut unleashes his power to such a degree that even Kuja is scratched. Amused, he retaliates by conjuring a black cloud in the sky with a giant eye in the middle that suddenly places Bahamut under his direct control. The beast turns on the armada and decimates it, starting with Queen Brane as the first victim. After the carnage, Kuja leaves and the group finds the body of the Queen washed up on the shore. Her demeanor has changed to a much softer one, relieved to no longer be consumed by hatred and greed, and reminisces about happier times with Garnet and the late king. She gives Garnet her blessing to be queen and dies, as the party does the right thing and brings the queen's body back to Alexandria. Giving her a proper burial, Garnet now has the entire burden of Alexandria Kingdom on her shoulders. As time passes and the group parts ways somewhat, it's 3 days before Garnet's coronation day. Garnet has her Eidolon stones returned to her, but her obligations prevent her from meeting with Zidane anymore. Eiko sees this as a chance to win over Zidane and has Dr. Tot help her write a love letter for her. The doctor, meanwhile, notes the telltale summoner's horn on Eiko's head. He recalls how he one day found a beached boat that had a dead woman in it with a barely alive baby that happened to look exactly like the recently deceased Princess Garnet. However, that baby had a horn on it, so he had it removed per the order of the late king, and it became the replacement Princess Garnet. Incidentally, the current Garnet confesses to General Beatrix that she is adopted, and Beatrix replies she already knew, and it never mattered. The love letter for Zidane completed, Eiko's letter gets dropped and changes hands several times, ending up in the hands of Baku, who drops it by Steiner, who is seen leaving by Beatrix, who picks up the letter and assumes Steiner wrote the love letter and rendezvous appointment for her. Meanwhile, Zidane is sulking in a bar, lovesick and frustrated at the prospect of losing Garnet to her role as queen. Later, Freya tries to snap him to attention and remind him Kuja may go after her again in pursuit of the Eidolons and kill her like he did her mother. Freya, Zidane, Vivi, and Amarant leave together to at least watch the coronation ceremony, and while Steiner is less than pleased to see them all, he grants them audience with the princess. Their meeting is brief and more of a farewell, as Zidane is at a loss for words, and Garnet swaps summoning jewels with Eiko as a symbol of their friendship. Zidane kicks himself for watching the only person he loves simply walk away, and Eiko realizes she can't win over Zidane. She goes to the meeting spot mentioned in the love letter anyway, but is startled away by others and eventually Steiner out on night patrol. He finds the same love letter on the ground and picks it up in time for Beatrix to come to the rendezvous point mentioned in it, and the two knights end up having a romantic moment purely by accident. Later, as Dr. Tot wants to ask more about summoners in Mid-Ain Seri, the group decides to take their mind off recent events and rest in Trino. Eiko vents her frustration about Zidane while sightseeing around the city, while Zidane tries to take his mind off Garnet with participating in the local card tournament. He defeats the current champion, who happens to be Regent Cid, and he tells him afterwards he's testing the new airship, the Hildegard II, an airship that can fly without mist. Suddenly, they're alerted that Kuja is in Alexandria, and at this time, Kuja lets Bahamut free to burn down Alexandria, while Garnet feels helpless against its might. She delegates missions to the Knights of Pluto as Steiner and Beatrix move into the streets to reclaim the city from mist monsters block by block. As everyone does their best to stem the endless flood of monsters invading the city, Garnet hears some music and is led atop the castle. As the group hurries to Castle Alexandria on Cid's airship, Eiko senses the Holy Judgment is coming as her pendant begins to shine in sync with Garnet's. Eiko leaps off the ship and is caught by the waves of summoning magic also coming from Garnet, as the power between the two calls forth the mighty Alexander to not only shield the city, but also eliminate Bahamut with a salvo of inescapable holy light. Not far, Kuja is impressed by Garnet's summon and calls down the giant eye again, calling it the Invincible. However, this time it's revealed that the eye is a machination operated by an armored man within, who is less than pleased with both Kuja and Zidane's actions across Gaia. Kuja is surprised by the sudden lack of support from the Invincible and is alarmed that it may be that a man named Garland has arrived personally to Gaia. As Zidane tells the others to prepare and escape as he rescues the girls, the Invincible attacks Alexander, blowing Garnet away. Zidane leaps in to save her just in time, and the three manage to grab a lifeline to swing away safely on. The Invincible fires again to destroy Alexander, and not only blows away the castle, but Alexandria off the map. With the fourth and final major nation destroyed, Garland believes he has destroyed Kuja with this as well, mentioning also preventing more souls from returning to Gaia and having to eventually face his own counterpart. Time passes, and after Zidane recovers from the attack, they have a conference to discuss where to go after this tragic loss. They learn Kuja actually survived as well, stealing away on the Hildegard 1, and now the sentient black mages have joined him as well. In addition, General Beatrix is still missing, and Garnet seems to have lost her voice after the attack. Their path forward seems to be in stopping Kuja's path of destruction, but for that they need an airship, and the Hildegard 2 is too slow compared to the first model. The third one would be more advanced, but Cid needs to be human to complete it, so they must restore his cursed body. They try one remedy, but it only results in changing him into a frog, and as they prep a trip to Hilda, his wife, they visit the Black Mage village in order to learn more about why most of them turned to join Kuja. As they arrive, they learn from the few that stayed behind that they went with Kuja after they learned of their maximum 1-year lifespan, and Kuja promised a way to extend that. Vivi is furious at them selling out to an untrustworthy Kuja, and also learns that he was of the prototype Black Mage set, which means he is stronger and may last just a little bit longer. Regardless, they learn of Kuja's secret underground palace and hasten over there. Upon entry, they are all captured immediately, and Kuja holds the group hostage in order to speak with Zidane privately. He requests Zidane and 3 others of his choosing to retrieve the Gulag Stone from Olivert, a place situated in an anti-magic zone. Get the stone and he can have the rest of his allies and Regent Cid back. Forced to cooperate, Zidane agrees, and the group is flown to the Forgotten Continent. Making their way to Olivert, the mysterious place seems to welcome them in, and within they find many strange relics recounting the rise and fall of civilization over a planet called Terra, though it seems only Zidane can interpret them. Later, they encounter a room of faces that speak to them all, talking about how Terra was a dying planet, and is still in the middle of attempting to save themselves through tremendous sacrifices. They then see an image of Terra merging with a second planet and defeat a Sentry airship in order to gain the Gulag Stone. Meanwhile, Kuja has no intention to keep his promise and sets up an elaborate slow-moving death trap for them all, but unexpectedly, Regent Cid sneaks around and manages to free them all. The second half of the party mobilizes and makes their way past the riddles and traps of Kuja's palace in order to escape on their own. The away team returns successfully, and Kuja tricks Zidane by showing him illusions of his captured friends, though fortunately the other team actually comes in behind the away team and bursts in just in time to stop Zidane from handing over the stone. However, Zorn and Thorn ambush and kidnap Eiko, and Kuja uses the distraction to steal the stone and get away anyway. They chase his airship in their boat, and they follow him to the dormant volcano Mount Gulag, wherein they find the 2 jesters attempting to extract Eidolons from Eiko in the same ritual they performed on Garnet. Kuja wants a power strong enough to destroy Garland, however they seem to be having difficulty getting Eiko's Eidolon since Eiko is not 16 years old yet. As they begin again more aggressively, Eiko's companion Moogle Mog comes out, enters a trance state, and reveals her true form, that of the Eidolon Medine, who crushes the Jester in one attack. Kuja is then very intrigued on the nature of gaining new power through trance, and theorizes that it's intense anger that induces such a state. He gets an idea on how to gain immense power with an incredibly hateful soul as a catalyst rather than chasing Eidolons. He leaves and even abandons the Black Mages, and beyond they find Cid's missing wife Hilda, whom Kuja had captured the airship from. Returning to Lindblum, Cid apologizes for his cheating and begs for a second chance, to which Hilda permits and returns him to his normal self. During the planning for their next move, Hilda reveals what she learned while captive. She reveals that Kuja is not from this world Gaia, but from another world called Terra, which seems to have some connection to a place called the Shimmering Island. Though apparently one can cross to the other world through a breach in the Forgotten Continent called Ibsen's Castle. As they wait for the Hildegard 3 to be completed, they note Garnet has gone missing, though in their search they discover Beatrix has survived the destruction of Alexandria after all. She informs them of where they can find Garnet, and as Zidane rushes to see her, it turns out she's reclaimed her voice. She apologizes for being weak, letting Alexandria fall to ruin, and running away from responsibility as queen. And as a firm commitment to her decision to do better going forward, she cuts her hair and sets off with the group to stop Kuja in the Hildegard 3. Approaching a strange castle, they note it's under the strange effect of reversing the effectiveness of their gear, in which the normally weak weapons and armor are now strong and vice versa. Amarant uses this opportunity to prove a point about being a loner and refuses to work under Zidane anymore. He strikes it out on his own, though he is soon rescued from his own foolish arrogance. As they solve the riddle of the 4 mirrors within the castle, they find they must split up and tackle 4 elemental shrines simultaneously. Garnet and Eiko take on the water shrine, Amarant and Freya are tasked with the fire shrine, Vivi and Steiner handle the wind shrine, and Zidane takes Quina with him to the earth shrine. Each shrine is treacherous for each pair, and before each team can place their respective mirror at their shrine, a powerful guardian in the name of Terra bars their progress. Each teammate edges out a win against their respective foe, and they all help to reveal the way to the Shimmering Island. Breaking through the portal to another world, they are all teleported to the mystical world of Terra, where they are immediately greeted by Garland, who encourages Zidane to discover who he really is. He chases after someone who looks remarkably similar to him, who then welcomes him home to Branval. Nearby, Garnet sees the ship Invincible and realizes it's been the giant red eye of destruction she's seen before. Zidane also feels very unsettled by all the blue lights everywhere, and as he seeks some answers, he bites off more than he can chew and learns all of the people here, including himself, are vessels called genomes. They are normally manufactured soulless beings, though Zidane was given a bigger purpose by Garland. Garland's mission is to restore the people of Terra, who are actually all asleep in stasis and currently being tended to by the drone-like genomes. Garland is seeking to turn Gaia into Terra and thus save his people by sacrificing the other planet. It turns out this isn't the first time, as Terra must constantly absorb new planets in order to sustain itself, as in order to continue their desire for immortality, the people of Terra survive by occupying their souls inside the empty genomes. As every planet has a cycle of souls being born from and returning to the planet, Garland sought to gain control of that cycle, and Zidane was made to be a means to that end. After this revelation, Zidane is invited to speak more with Garland. Garland greets an angry Zidane and explains he doesn't want to destroy Gaia so much as turn it into Terra. Though this plan has had many bumps along its way, such as Zidane growing up on Gaia and Kuja turning rogue. In fact, he mentions still wanting Zidane's help anyway. He repeats that genomes are merely vessels for the souls of the people of Terra when they awaken, and reveals that 24 years ago, he made a vessel that was too strong for just this purpose, and decided to repurpose him for the task of disrupting the flow of souls in Gaia. When confirming this brother of Zidane's to be Kuja, he also notes that Kuja actually hides his telltale tail as a sign of denying his origin, which suits him as his drive for war and inducing chaos. As for Zidane, he was meant to fulfill the same role as Kuja, but when Kuja found out, he felt threatened, dumped Zidane on Gaia to push him out of the picture, but kept him alive to make himself look better by comparison. Meanwhile, with Gaia's cycle of souls halted, the souls can be drained away and replaced with the souls of Terra. The assimilation of the world has already begun, with many of Terra's structures appearing in Gaia, such as Oliver and the Ifa tree, which joins their 2 worlds and souls. Thus, Zidane still has a chance to claim his intended position as a new Angel of Death and usher in the souls of Terra. However, he refuses and intends to take down Garland and Terra in order to save Gaia and his friends. Garland then attempts to tear Zidane's soul out and make him a normal empty genome and seals him in Pandemonium, a place where the souls of Terra are stored. Despite his sudden resignation to the appalling fact that his origins make him an enemy to all of Gaia, his will and bonds with his friends is too strong to be wiped out. When he's rescued by the others, he pushes them all away, convincing himself that he's unworthy of their friendship. Regardless, they surround him and affirm he's always been their trusted friend, even if he's from another world and meant to be the destroyer of Gaia. He picks himself up and apologizes, and their new focus is stopping Garland and escaping from Pandemonium. Garland rationalizes that all civilizations thrive by consuming others, and Terra is no different, and attacks the party. However, after the party wins the fight, Kuja steals the Invincible and declares himself the new ruler of Terra. They clash, but amazingly during the fight, Kuja attains a transform for himself and immediately demolishes the party with the power of Ultima. The party survives, but asks how Kuja gained such a power, and he explains he is merely borrowing the hatred of another soul, specifically the unmatched hatred of the soul of Queen Brane when she was killed by Bahamut. He kicks over Garland to his death and turns to the party, but stops as the lingering voice of Garland spitefully reveals that Kuja cannot escape his imminent demise. It turns out he was always built with a defect to die around the time Zidane grew up to replace him, which happens to be very soon, so all of his ambitions are meaningless. Kuja finds himself unable to deny this and decides that if he goes, so too will this world. He starts by destroying Terra, and the party decides now is the time to leave. Vivi suggests stealing the Invincible, and Zidane leads a rescue effort to save what genomes he can. Among the refugees is the first genome he met, Mikoto, who happens to also have a soul and was intended to be Zidane and Kuja's replacement, which somewhat makes her their little sister. Escaping the destruction of Terra, the group warps back to Gaia, though they fear Kuja could still use the Ifa tree to cross over to this world, and not to mention, Mist has suddenly returned to this world. They drop the genomes off in the Black Mage village and head straight for the Ifa tree next. A swarm of dragons comes out to stop them, but just in the nick of time, Regent Cid flies in with the entire Lindblum fleet as well as the Tantalus troop to engage the Draconic Storm and carve a path for the party. The Invincible manages to evade most of the threat and are given cover by the Red Rose and General Beatrix, who is here to make sure Steiner comes back safely this time. With the way clear, the party enters a special dimension where Kuja awaits. Within, they are surprised to be in front of a strange castle, and Garland speaks to Zidane, revealing this place to be Memoria, a place of truth and constructed of their own memories. Within, they confront and defeat the 4 Chaos Guardians whom they met before guarding the mirrors, the Serpentine Swordmaster Meliris, the Queen of Dragons Tiamat, the Tentacled Kraken, the Harbinger of Decay Lich, and even Lord of the Underworld Hades. Beyond, they find the crystal, the origins of life for everything, and within it is Kuja, seeking to destroy the progenitor of all life in the universe. Kuja, after all, feels it's unfair for the world to continue living after he expires, so they clash with the puppet that has seized the power of worlds in his hand. However, with the party on the brink of winning, Kuja unleashes Ultima again to beat them down. As the party wakes up, they are in the presence of a being called Necron, who is called by Kuja's fear, anger, and desire to annihilate everything, and whose existence is to bring this world to the Zero World, where there is no life or crystal to give life. However, Zidane states he's unafraid, and the hopes and dreams of his allies give strength to each other to stand up one more time and fight. Together, Zidane, the womanizing rogue who was almost the alien harbinger of doom for the planet, Garnet, the Queen of Alexandria and lost member of the Summoner tribe, Steiner, captain of the Knights of Pluto and the Queen's retainer, Vivi, the awakened Black Mage who is on the verge of death but will still fight for his life and others, Freya, the last of the Dragon Knights of Burmecia, Quina, Zidane's fellow globetrotter and food connoisseur of the Ku tribe, Eiko, the last of the ancient Horned Summoner tribe, and Amaranth, the vagrant and self-assured mercenary, combine their wills to live to overpower Necron and convince it to leave this dimension alone. Somehow, the group is teleported out of the dimension and beyond the Ifa tree as it explodes, and as Cid picks up the party, Kuja contacts Zidane to bid him farewell. Zidane realizes Kuja had a change of heart and was the one who warped them from Necron and the explosion, and empathizes with him that he probably would have done the same thing had the situation been reversed. Though the unpopular choice, Zidane feels it's the right thing to help out Kuja in return by going back for him, which the others reluctantly allow. As Zidane turns to rescue his brother, he charges headlong into the collapsing Ifa tree and actually manages to find Kuja, back to his normal form and released of his hateful transform. He confesses he just wanted to have a meaningful life because he knew it would be brief, and Zidane points out that out of all the genomes designed for the wrong reasons, he was the one who defied that fate and gave the rest of them hope, including giving Zidane a second chance on Gaia. Unfortunately, before they can continue their chat for long, the Ifa tree collapses around them. As the game concludes, we see a long letter written by Vivi before he expires, as everyone has gone their separate ways since saving Gaia. We first see Vivi's sons, who are his living legacies as he has already passed from this world, having told them all how precious life is. We then see Freya in a ruined Burmecia with her former lover, Sir Fratley, working to rebuild the city as well as their relationship despite his amnesia. We then see Beatrix resigning from her role as Alexandria's general, and Amaranth resuming his life as a mercenary with the bounty hunter Lonnie. Next, Quina, heading the kitchen as top chef of Alexandria, and Eiko, who has been adopted by Regent Cid and Hilda, as they all travel to Alexandria on Cid's newest Hildegard model. We then see Steiner confessing his love to Beatrix and convincing her not to leave, and Garnet having resumed her role as queen as the Tantalus Theater Troupe is set to return for another performance of I Want to Be Your Canary. However, as the main character of the play performs under guise of a cloak, he reveals himself during the play to be Zidane, who survived after all. Shocked and overjoyed, Garnet rushes the stage and embraces Zidane at long last. Around them, the group is reunited as they all cheer for the loving reunion, and as the game ends, Zidane reveals he could never die when he had his desire to come home to Garnet and her song in his heart. Final Fantasy IX has enjoyed the success of selling over 5.3 million copies worldwide.